Rock and Joe. Rock and Joe. Rock and Joe. Rock and Joe. Rock and Joe.
Welcome back to the Rock and Jouv Show, everybody.
Welcome back.
We have a special episode planned for you here today.
Every episode on this show is special.
It's very true. This one in particular is pretty special. This will be the Rock and Jouv's very first Jouvies Awards show.
That is correct.
Now,
named after yours truly.
Named after the one and only Big Baby, Al Javanis. Okay, so obviously free agency is off the rails, and instead of just sitting here and reading you the names and contracts and years of everybody, we're going to hand out some awards to those players that deserve awards one way or another. Without further ado, let's begin the Jouvies. So we'll open up the show tonight with an award that's pretty special. It goes to a young man, great season, undoubtedly. Big playoff minutes, numbers, everything.
Already won an award himself.
Already won an award himself.
So this is just playing with house money at this point.
So the grass is greener on the other side award goes to Montrezl Harrell.
Yeah.
Al, why don't you explain why this young gentleman got this?
You see, we're trying to have some fun awards here. We're not just trying to go, oh, best bargain signing. Oh, biggest surprise. Now we're trying to switch it up. We're trying to have the Rock and Jouv show stand out over here with the Jovi Awards. So Montrezl Harrell left the title contending Clippers. He just won a Sixth Man of the Year award, arguably the best 1-2 punch off the bench. I would say the best 1-2 punch off the bench was him and Lou Williams the last 2 years. They each won a Sixth Man of the Year award, and instead of just running it back and being like, we got some dogs in this team, I think we can run it back and we get over the Lakers, we get over the Nuggets, we do whatever we got to do and win the title. But he said, nah, I'm gonna go run with the Lakers. Bye, see ya. What was your initial reaction?
I was really surprised. I thought he was going to leave. I was almost certain about that. I knew he was disgruntled on the team because of the load management that Kawhi and Paul George, the standards that they were held to. Montrezl Harrell is a guy that works hard night in, night out. He's going to try to win you games, even off the bench. He does what he has to do to win. And all of a sudden, your top two stars are taking games off just because. And I think he was really upset by that. I knew he was going to leave, and maybe he went to the Lakers because he knew that they weren't a better team. You know, they had the two best players, I guess, in that series, Lakers-Clippers. I don't know. I mean, it's debatable, of course, but I think he saw that they had a lot of talent at the top two, but then all the way down, they were just bad. You know, we gone over it a lot, that those players weren't nearly as good on the Lakers as they were on the Clippers, and they still won the title. So I think Trez was like, you know what, that team works hard. They work their ass off. Let me get in there.
Yeah, I think there's definitely two different cultures between the two teams. It's not even like the Clippers necessarily don't work hard, but I mean, there was a lot of unraveling that kind of seemed like it was going on, not quite as much as the Rockets, but it just seemed like there was a lot of things inside that locker room that were getting out. And when that happens, some of that is likely true. I mean, there were legitimate sources that were talking about it. So I definitely agree. I think he probably looked at the Lakers. He said they just won a title, and I'm going to shift the balance and try to win another title because obviously they got their 1-2 punch. They got LeBron, they got AD, they just got Dennis Schroeder, whether he starts or comes off the bench. And so he says, well, I look at that, and that's a pretty damn good team myself, and I have the chance to shift the tides and go to a team that really just won one. So why not? I'm surprised because I thought Montrezl Harrell was going to get the bag. We're going to use the term the bag a lot during these. I thought he was going to sign like a 4-year, $80 million deal somewhere.
I had thought that he was going to get somewhere in that $12 to $15 million range as well, but I think what has he ended up with, like 9.5 or a year or something? I think that really just proves that he was upset. He was just really upset on the Clippers, I think.
I think so. And I think you go to Lakers, you don't have to relocate any of that. He probably likes the city. I mean, who doesn't? I've never been there, but most people do try to go out to LA.
Now that brings us to our next award winner, 26-year-old undrafted point guard from Wichita State. We have the most uneventful bag securing award goes to Fred VanVleet. Now, we say uneventful because, I mean, at least in my opinion, VanVleet is just very lackluster. I don't know. I think he's basically in your YMCA Hall of Fame. I feel like I've just played against so many guys like this, undersized, but they can ball, they can shoot. You expect a lot out of them, just really consistent. Yeah, he just kind of snuck to that 4-year, $85 million deal. He said he wanted the bag, and Toronto gave it to him. I don't know. What is that, your backup point guard? Your two guard? I don't know.
I think ultimately, if I could just interject, I think
Please.
ultimately Kyle Lowry's not going to be there forever. He's getting a little bit older. Still a good player, obviously. I mean, ultimately Kyle Lowry isn't going to be there forever, and Fred VanVleet knows that. He played 35 minutes a game anyway, so whether he was in the starting lineup or not, he was still getting his fair share of run.
Sure. I mean, he's 26, though. I think that has to be a factor.
I think the biggest thing for me, he knows that Toronto was a good fit. I remember he didn't get drafted a couple of years ago, 4 years ago. He used that as motivation. I saw the video from his draft party, and after he didn't get drafted, he had all his friends and family there, and it was real disappointing. But he took the mic and was just like, all right, I'm going to use this as motivation. You guys will see me. And now he just secured the bag. I think really the reason this was uneventful because there were plenty of teams vying for his services. Ultimately, I think he probably made the right decision just because the fit there on Toronto is really good. They still have a pretty good team themselves. He's going to have the keys to the point guard spot in a year or two, whether they trade Lowry or they let him walk.
Yeah, but he's going to be 28 in a year or two. Basically, the highest paid players over there are going to be Siak and Fleet. I guess maybe it's just my bias. I don't really think he's, a fantastic player. I don't really think he deserves that bag for that long. But that's just me. I guess maybe I'm not a hater, but I don't know. I guess I just don't believe really in his talent.
Yeah, I see that. I know the Knicks were linked to him a lot, and they were probably, I don't want to say the runner-up for his services because I think all along he knew he was staying in Toronto. But he might have used the Knicks' interest and a couple other teams' interests as leverage to be like, I know I work in this system, but I can get a starting job somewhere else. I'll get the bag. And they were like, yeah, we'll keep you around. I'm happy for him. I love to see when undrafted players turn into, I don't know if I would call him a star. He could turn into, he's improved every single year he's been in the league. I wouldn't say he's a star, but he's turned into a very nice player who technically could have all-star potential because you never know. You never know, especially in the Eastern Conference. So happy for him, and bag was secured.
All right, VanVleet, signed by the Raptors, 4 years, $85 million deal. What do you give it?
I'm going to give that one a solid 8 just because the fit is great. He gets to stay there on the team that really knows how to maximize his talents, and he's a pretty good player, and he's only 26, so I'll give that an 8.
Okay, I'm going to give that one a 6. I think they could have let him walk. I think they should have called him on his bluff. I don't think he's fantastic. I get that's just me, and maybe it's not a popular opinion, but I'm going to give that one a 6. Maybe. Okay, so what's our average score on that, Al?
So 7.
7. All right, next award.
So up next, I'm going to give the Vince Carter is a legitimate source award to the Danilo Gallinari signing. So a couple days ago, Vince Carter, he came out on, I think it was NBA's The Jump, and he said the Hawks are going to sign 2 of the following 4 players: Bogdan Bogdanovic, Danilo Gallinari, Rajon Rondo, and Joe Harris. So Gallinari, check. Rondo, check. Bogdanovic could still get matched, but that could also be a check as well. So it's 3 out of the 4, and then Joe Harris re-signed with the Nets.
Wow.
So I think the Gallinari signing is the biggest one of the 4. Rondo's the most established player, but he's a little bit past his prime. Still a very good contributing player, and I think he'll help Trae Young out a lot. But I think Gallinari was the biggest fish out of the 4. And for Vince Carter to really get that right, obviously he's still connected to the Hawks organization as he played there last year. That was huge. That's definitely a way to kick off your time in the NBA media.
Wow. Obviously, Danilo's a great player, pretty experienced, great shooter, somebody who can really put the ball in the basket when he's healthy. And I think that's a big part of it with him is staying healthy.
Absolutely.
You could tell that Atlanta's taking it seriously this year, and I think it's about time that they do.
Atlanta has a pretty solid young core between Trae Young, John Collins, and then all the other 3-and-D type wing guys that they have. Plus, they just drafted Okongwu, so they got a nice young core. But eventually, like we said, the young core can only get you so far. We said that during the draft episode. I think when we were talking about the Suns and the Kings and all that. And the Hawks are like, all right, let's go all in right now. So they're bringing in established veterans that are going to play off of them, and then obviously they have Clint Capella as well. So I think this is undoubtedly going to be at least a playoff contender. Realistically, as high as the 5 or the 6 if all goes well, and their younger guys take another jump. All right, so what are you going to grade that signing?
Well, Gallinari does tend to get hurt sometimes. He is known to hit the big shots, though. I'm going to go ahead and give this signing a 7.5. just for the sheer fact that they're taking it seriously now, that the Hawks had made a statement in signing Gallinari that they're ready to play. So 7.5 for me.
I'm gonna make the math easy and say 7.5 as well. I'm gonna say 8. I'm gonna say 8. So that'll be 7.75 on average. I'm gonna give it an 8 just because of the same factors here, that they're finally taking it seriously. He hasn't really ever played a full season since his second year when he was on the Knicks. So the injury questions, I mean, he's had some seasons, one where he didn't play with an ACL, another 14, a 43, a 21. The injury problems are legitimate, but this is a 3-year deal. I don't remember if there's any opt-outs on there, but I think for a 3-year deal and a team that's trying to take a step to the next level, he's only 31 years old, so by the time the deal's over 34, you hope that, unless he has another really bad injury, that he'll still be a good contributor and at the very least just spread the floor. I'll give it an 8.
Next, we have an award that is close to our hearts here on the Rock and Jouv show, at least mine. So this award goes to not a player, but an agent. And the award for the best agent in the entire league goes to Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward's agent took one All-Star appearance, and turned it into 2 separate 4-year contracts worth $30 million or more. I mean, impressive. Truly
Absolutely impressive. I'm sure there's other ones on this list that we're going to be impressed by, but that's about as good as it gets.
That is, I mean, I can't think of another contract. I mean, like, that's like when Timofey Mozgov was like already washed and they gave him like 19 a year.
Oh my gosh. The Mozgov and Joakim Noah.
Yeah,
that was the worst offseason for contracts.
Remember Lou Dang got a big one that year?
Brutal.
Gordon Hayward, I'd like to talk about the Celtics, their offseason, and I'm sure you about the Knicks in a later episode, or
yeah, we'll get to that.
Gordon Hayward going to the Hornets was tough because we didn't get anything back for him. Feels like we didn't get anything for him his entire contract, if I can be honest with you. You know, of course, that terrible injury back in 2017, brutal injury. Okay, guy's out for the season. Okay, it happens. Obviously, the next year he comes back, averages like 5 points, 10 points. I don't know, nothing special. He's like timid around the ball. He's scared. Whatever, I get it. That's a terrible injury. Okay, but now this is 3 years later. We're talking about 2019, 2020, and the dude averages 17 in the beginning of the year. Okay, gets hurt with a high ankle sprain in the playoffs. Nothing. I mean, I really don't feel like I ever had that much contribution from Gordon Hayward. I don't know. And now all of a sudden he leaves without giving us anything. And okay, you know, it's all about the money. And I don't blame him. Some players are like that, and that's totally fine. You know, he has a family to think about. I mean, man, I would have liked to get something. I don't know what, because all the Hornets players are trash. I was really excited when we were talking about doing the sign and trade with the Pacers. We could have got Miles Turner, could have got TJ Warren.
Miles Turner would have been awesome.
Yeah, that would have been incredible, but
or TJ Warren.
They weren't going to pay him nearly as much as he made in the Hornets. So I mean, ultimately, 4 years, $120 million deal. He gets his bag, and honestly, if I'm Charlotte, that's a pretty good signing. You know, you take a chance on a guy like that. You're taking a chance on LaMelo. Like, if you take all these chances on guys, I mean, what do you really have to lose? You know, you took a big chance on Terry Rozier. Devontae Graham paid out pretty good. You have Bridges. You have a pretty good young cast. You brought back Biyombo, some nice veteran leadership. You know, so I think this offseason, they just took a lot of chances. They threw out money. I mean, that's what you want to do as a team. I mean, that's what the Hawks did. You know, I think it's kind of refreshing seeing these teams make a decision one way or the other. I think even Detroit made a decision. Sold. They took draft picks in. Blake Griffin will be on the move soon enough, I'm sure. They made a decision. Yeah, so obviously I'm upset that we lost Gordon for nothing. I guess for Charlotte it was a good signing. So
the way I look at it, I mean, Hayward could turn into an all-star again. I mean, sure, at this point he was like the 4th offensive option.
Alex, if he turns into an all-star after he left my team, I swear to God, I will burn down whatever building I have to make a statement. I don't know. I don't know, a religious building, a government building, I have no idea, but know that one building will burn every day that Gordon Hayward is an all-star in Charlotte. That's write it down, timestamp it.
Oh my goodness. So he definitely, I mean, he was basically number 4 option last year. He averaged almost 18 points a game. But kind of like we said when we were messaging earlier, how you were like, it kind of felt like you put up empty stats that didn't always contribute to winning. Now, I mean, for now, he's probably at least going to be the guy, him or maybe Devontae Graham. LaMelo Ball is going to be at least the facilitator there this year.
I disagree. I think LaMelo Ball is the guy this year.
I think LaMelo. I would love to see LaMelo be the guy. If LaMelo Ball can average I'm gonna say like 15 points a game. He's gonna have an awesome rookie season. If they don't let him give him the keys, he's averaging like 8, 9, 10, but like also 8 assists. Like whatever, that's cool. I think they should really give him the keys to the offense. Him and Graham could be a nice
Yeah,
backcourt, and then you have Gordon Hayward out there too.
Gordon Hayward's like a lurker, dude. He's like that guy that sits in the closet and just like watches everybody have a good time at the party. Like, you know what I mean? Like Gordon Hayward is not the life of the party. He's the guy that, sits back, eats the snacks when nobody's looking. Like that's him. So if LaMelo and Bridges and Devontae Graham want a ball, Gordon Hayward's just going to watch, hit some spot up shots, but he's not going to be take over Gordon.
So what grade would you give that signing?
Honestly, for them, I'm going to give that a 7.5. They're taking it seriously. They see the Hawks taking it seriously, and they're like, all right, look, the Magic bought like a couple years for free of being in the playoffs just because everybody else was terrible. Charlotte's going to try to make the playoffs. The Bulls are going to try to make the playoffs. The Hawks are going to make the playoffs. The East is ramping up a little bit this year. I'm going to give that a 7.5.
You see, I'll give an explanation with this one, but I'm gonna give that one like a 5. In fact, I will give it a 5. And here's why. The injury concerns are obviously there. I would say he's a little bit past his prime at this point. He had a little bit of a bounce back season, but I don't think I don't see him ever being that player again, and that's perfectly okay. But for $30 million a year, I feel like there's some teams that just keep handing out money. Cody Zeller's making double figures. Bismack Biyombo's making double figures because he had a couple games where he had 20 rebounds in the playoffs.
God, I will never forget that.
Nicholas
I will
Batum,
never forget that. Ever
Nicholas
as long
Batum.
as I live.
Nicholas Batum, we don't even have to talk about that contract. I mean, that's awful, and he still has another year left. And then,
Well, they cut him. I don't know if you saw that.
but even still, and then Frank Kaminsky. I know he's gone, but I'm pretty sure. Did they sign him to? I thought there was another guy that they signed to more money than he deserved. Oh, Rozier.
Oh, yeah.
They gave Rozier a ton of money last year, and it's kind of like these are nice players. I mean, you're taking the chance on Rozier. He's a fine player. I mean, Gordon Hayward still, again, especially in the Eastern Conference, if he becomes one of the 12 All-Stars this year, if they have an All-Star game, whatever, not completely.
No, absolutely
out of the realm
not.
of possibility.
No.
I really just wanted to hear that again.
No.
But if you're telling me a 4-year deal, I don't know if there's another opt-out like this one. If there's a player option, I can guarantee you he's taking that in the 4th year. I don't care how much he hates the city of Charlotte. I don't agree with the length. I mean, right now you're paying him and Terry Rozier so much money for a very long time. You can't just keep throwing bills at guys and then be the 9 seed. And I'm not really a fan of that. I don't like mediocrity because I've seen the Knicks.
You've seen enough of it.
Really, in the past couple of years, they've strived for mediocrity and not even achieved that.
No, I agree. If I can just add in the beginning of Gordon Hayward's career, when he was a restricted free agent with the Jazz, he tried to go to Charlotte, but the Jazz matched him.
Yeah, I do remember that.
So this is somewhere he had wanted to go. I have no idea why. But I think nonetheless, they were like, all right, we got to take a stab at a guy. We have a bunch of money. Let's just mess around and try to make the playoffs. Let's try to give the city of Charlotte a little reward, a little something sweet to have to eat here. I don't know. Again, I guess I just disagree. But I thought it was a good signing. But anyway, we move on. Okay, next we have 2 players, actually. They tie, and it's not the last time that this will happen in this episode, probably. 2 separate teams coming together on one team. We have the Thirst Quencher Award, and this award goes to Tristan Thompson and Jeff Teague on the Boston Celtics. This is big. I think we've always had issues. I mean, at least last season, certainly. Okay, so we lost the starter. Yeah, that definitely sucks. And you know what? Al, I'm going to make a statement that I made here on this podcast last year, or the year before. When Al Horford left, what did I say?
That he sucked. You can finally admit that he sucks.
So here I am. Here I stay on this podcast, now declaring after Gordon Hayward has left my team that he sucks, bro. He sucks. Okay? So bye-bye, Gordon, okay?
Yeah, Mister, what did you give him, 7.5?
For Charlotte, it was a good signing. Come on.
No, I
And also they're bums, so you know what I mean? They got duped. But anyway, the Celtics have had a huge issue with, honestly, 2 of the huge issues that I've seen. It's really not scoring the ball. We have Tatum, Brown, Kemba that can really score at will. Even Marcus Smart will light it up for like 5 threes in a game every once in a while for like no reason at all. But 2 huge issues for us have been have been rebounding and bench depth. So I think we solved both of those issues here, hence the thirst quencher award. Tristan Thompson, honestly, he's just one of those players that you hate to play against. I don't know, at least for me, every time we'd match up with him on the Cavs, he would just kind of destroy us because exactly that. He was a great rebounder. Jeff Teague provides some bench scoring, which is great. We lost Brad Wanamaker, unfortunately. We brought back Taco. I guess that's what matters. But really, I think that this was the first year that I've seen the Celtics kind of take like flyers on guys, like bring in a couple mercenaries. And I think I've said that before, but a lot of teams do that, man, where, the Warriors, the Hawks, they'll just kind of bring in like mercenaries for like a year or two. And this is the first time that we've really done that. And I'm honestly really happy about it because that just kind of shows Danny's desire to win. I think Danny likes to kind of build kind of like a small family kind of environment. I know that sounds stupid, but I mean, we said it when Gershon Yabusele left. Everybody in Boston was pretty upset, but it's like, who the hell is that guy, dude? He's not even in the league anymore. He's terrible, right?
Nah,
He's garbage.
If Frank Ntilikina ever gets traded, the same thing's going to happen.
Right.
Maybe even worse. There's going to be riots. I can tell you that.
I don't know. We don't usually take small flyers on guys, but this time we did. We brought in a couple Mercs. I was really happy about it. I think they're going to be really productive. Especially losing Enes Kanter, which is a real bummer, and I'm pretty pissed about that. But Tristan Thompson fills that need, so does Jeff Teague, so he's the thirst quencher. What do you say?
Yeah, I like the Jeff Teague signing a lot more than I like the Tristan Thompson signing, if I'm going to be honest. Okay. I think Tristan Thompson is a direct cause of Enes Kanter leaving. I mean, you basically replace one for the other. I like Kanter better on the offensive end, but as I saw for 2 years, he can't play defense. I really didn't dislike the guy when he was on the Knicks. It made sense for him to leave so we could really start playing Mitch. But he can't play defense. He's probably the worst pick-and-roll defender I think I've ever seen. So you bring in Tristan Thompson. He's not great defensively. He's probably not even going to give you a block a game. He'll be a little bit of an upgrade, at least in an IQ standpoint, and then he'll probably give you less offensively. I don't think the Celtics are going to need too much out of Tristan Thompson offensively. If he scores 10 points a game, that's fine. The thing with Tristan Thompson, I feel like he kind of sometimes takes years off. I mean, when they had their big three for a couple of years, obviously his scoring dipped, including 1 year, 17-18. I think that was the last year LeBron was there. He was only scoring 5 points a game. The thing that was the worst about that, his rebounding was only 6.6, so he can't take a season off. He can't be doing that anymore.
Right. And I think we'll just trade his ass because we're not tied to him. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And Thompson on a $9 million deal, that's not even that awful. I mean, it's not like it's untradeable. But the Jeff Teague, I didn't see the money, but I saw that was just a 1 year deal. So I agree. It's good to get some flyer guys in there. I mean, Jeff Teague is a backup point guard that's pretty damn solid.
Yeah, I mean, last year he was making, $17 million? Yeah,
and Jeff Teague already made more than enough money in his NBA career than he could ever possibly ask for. So,
yeah,
whatever number that ends up being, I think I like the Teague signing a lot because you guys don't have a lot of veterans that have a lot of playoff experience. I mean, you have Tatum, he's young. You have Brown, he's young. Sure, they got tons of playoff experience now, but I mean, Jeff Teague never got the job done.
Marcus, Jalen, and Jason all have more playoff experience than Kemba.
Oh, they absolutely do.
Yeah.
Kemba made it, I think, twice in his almost 10 years on the Hornets.
And never made it out of the first round.
But, I mean, if you're going to bring in a veteran backup point guard, a guy who could probably still start for a couple teams that need a point guard, that's as good as it gets. A 1 year deal. You can't complain about that.
What do you rate this?
I'm going to give the Tristan Thompson signing, I'm not a big fan of it. I'll give it like a 5.5. Teague, I'm going to give an 8.5, though.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and give the Tristan Thompson a 7 and Teague an 8. So
I say 8.5. All right, so Teague will be 8.25, and Tristan Thompson was, you said 7.5, and I said 5.5?
I said 7.
7? So what's that, 6.25?
All right, give him a 7.5. I feel kind of dirty after I just talked him up. You just gotta. It's because you kind of brought me down. You kind of brought me to reality.
No, I got you. All right. So Thompson will be a 6.5. All right, and then for the thank goodness they didn't dump all their future cap space away on mediocre players award goes to the signings of Alec Burks and Austin Rivers.
Hooray! Hooray, Knicks being a basketball franchise.
I'll be honest, for the most part, I actually love the Knicks offseason so far. I don't care that we're probably not going to make the playoffs this year. That's perfectly okay with me. What the Knicks have been so prone to is to bring in pieces that don't fit at all, to overpay them, and then eventually we have to attach an asset to be able to get rid of them. Instead of signing out contracts like if we gave Gordon Hayward 4 years, 120 million, I would be talking a lot louder than I am right now. You limit what your team's able to do, even though the Knicks do need a point guard. I like these deals, and here's why. Alec Burks is going to bring. I mean, he's just going to come in and he's just going to be able to score, whether it's off the bench or in the starting lineup. He's going to be able to shoot. He was a member of the Golden State Warriors. He shot almost 38% on 16 points per game. I know he was having a lot bigger role than he ever had. On over 41% from the arc. The Knicks need guys that can stretch the floor. Alec Burks is absolutely going to do that, and he's not going to be a liability. And I think that's one thing the Knicks are really looking for is guys that aren't going to be liabilities defensively. So I like that signing a lot. He could even just plug in as a starter at shooting guard or small forward, whatever you want to put him at. But I like that signing 1 year, $6 million for a guy who had a really nice year last year, a career year. So can't complain about that. And then Austin Rivers, he's a solid rotation guard. Somebody will probably pick him up in a trade anyway because he's always just seems to be like a backup guard on a playoff team. And then I saw that only the first year is guaranteed, and I was like, damn, this is a damn good signing. He's just a quality role player, shot 36 from the arc, decent passer. But he's a guy, he's only 28 years old. It's not like they're bringing in some hag and they're signing a 34-year-old to a 3-year deal or something like that. Although I think Frank should be the starter, and they should give him the keys for the season. The thing that I didn't like was the Elfrid Payton signing. I mean, it was only 1 year, $5 million, and again, that could be a deal that they just trade away at the deadline because it's pretty cheap. But signing both of them didn't make as much sense because, again, they also have Dennis Smith Jr., right? I want those guys to be getting some run, especially Frank. They never really let him be the starting point guard to see what he's bringing to the table, whether you think he's more of a 2 or not. I think that he's ultimately got to be the starter. And I like Austin Rivers better than Payton just because of the fact that he's not, if he passes in the ball, they have to at least respect him. And Elfrid Payton, he was awful. One of the worst three-point shooters that I've ever seen. He just keeps shooting because teams leave him open and he misses. I legitimately believe I could step in and hit threes at a better clip than. That's Elfrid Payton.
What do you rate this?
I'm going to give Alec Burks an 8, and I'm going to give Austin Rivers 7.5. I'm going to give Austin Rivers an 8. I forgot about how good of a bargain that was, and only 1 year guaranteed.
At the end of the day, you are taking away playing time from guys that do kind of deserve it. I mean, who do you think they're going to go to down the stretch? Alec Burks or RJ Barrett? If Barrett's having a bad shooting night and Alec Burks is as consistent as he always is, I'm afraid of that for you.
That's the thing is Burks isn't necessarily the most consistent player. He's almost got a little JR in him. So he could catch fire and just hit 8 threes in the game and be ridiculous.
I'm giving these both 6s.
We'll give him a 7.
In moving teams, but nonetheless, he ended up figuring it out. The I'll follow you anywhere Kawhi award goes to Serge Ibaka. Marc Gasol would have been a recipient of this award, but I think he got confused which LA team Kawhi had gone to. This, unfortunately, only goes to Serge Ibaka. This fills that hole perfectly that Montrezl Harrell left. It's actually the same contract. You know, there's another 2-year, $19 million.
Yeah, same exact contract.
You know, you lose one tenacious power forward, rebounding, defense, and then you gain another one that already has championship pedigree, is familiar with Kawhi. Kawhi honestly probably was like, you need to bring in my friends or I'm out. You know what I mean? Maybe, you know.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you bring in Ibaka 2 years, $19 million?
I heard things when we were playing them in the playoffs, like the Raptors announcers would just say that Serge Ibaka is one of the best teammates in the entire league, and you know,
absolutely.
And I've always liked Serge Ibaka.
I've heard nothing. I'm a big Serge Ibaka fan. I've heard nothing but that as well.
I mean, he is a great player, tenacious rebounder, great defender. So, and at 31, you know, 2-year, $19 million deal. That's a great deal. That is a great deal. Don't you think so?
Absolutely. Probably out of all the signings, this might get my highest grade. I'm not going to leak what I'm giving yet. But especially after you lost Montrezl Harrell, it's like, damn, he just changed the tides. Like, what the hell happened? And all of a sudden, it's like Kawhi's like, all right, watch this. Mm-hmm. Serge Ibaka, let's get it. A lot of people thought Serge Ibaka was going to the Nets.
And I'm glad he didn't.
And he was like, yeah, me too.
Isn't that sad that you're glad that he went to the Clippers that already have Kawhi, Paul George, Lou Williams? Isn't that sad that you're happy that a great power forward went there as opposed to the Nets? You know what I mean?
We do not like the Brooklyn Nets on the Rock and Jouv show.
We are not fans.
Oh, I don't want to make this an anti-Brooklyn Nets. I don't want that to be. That's the only thing we talk about. But it's worth mentioning. It was nice for him to go out west and not be playing Brooklyn. I mean, Ibaka's awesome. He's not quite the shot blocker that he used to be. He actually averaged a career high 50.4 points this year. He's not going to create offensively, maybe not as much as Montrezl Harrell can, but I
Hmm.
think he's a great plug and play player. And the Clippers' calling card is going to be defense. It was last year, and it's going to be again this year. And you bring in Serge Ibaka, dude who in his prime, surprised that I don't think he ever won a Defensive Player of the Year award, but probably deserved one.
What did you give him?
I'm going to give this signing a 9, a
Wow.
coveted 9. I
Wow.
don't know if it's possible for a signing to get a 10.
So a 9. Wow.
I'm going to give it a 9, and here's why. I think just because of the gravity of the situation, they had just lost Montrezl Harrell, and it seemed kind of like a betrayal. So they basically brought in a guy, a better defender, might fit what they're doing better because he could really stretch the floor as well. Ibaka can shoot the 3 ball 38.5% this year. That's pretty good for Serge Ibaka. I mean,
No, yeah.
he's always been a guy who could stretch the floor ever
Much better
since like
shooter.
his 3rd year in OKC, roughly. They pulled that out in the playoffs. He's got a good mid range and even respectable from the line. A lot of big men, especially good defensive big men, their thing is they can't shoot free throws.
I'm going to go ahead and give it an 8 for the same reasons. Again, I do love Serge Ibaka. I can't disagree with anything that you just said. And honestly, a bit of an upgrade, like as you said. So it's dirt cheap. I'll give it an 8.5. I just talked myself into it after you had talked me into it as well.
Yeah. It's 8.75 overall, which unless somebody gets a higher grade, is going to be our top-rated signing.
Well, we still got one more. So
Still got one more.
also, as a side note, sorry, I see Hassan Whiteside's still a free agent, and
I know, dude. I was going to say that, dude.
You know,
Boston needs to pick him up.
we need him.
Bro, Boston, you've wanted Whiteside too.
I have.
I think
I love what, Al?
you love big guys.
I love big guys, and that's a big son of a bitch.
Dude,
He's
I
a big
think
guy.
the two fits I like for him is Dallas and you. Hassan would be such a good deal.
Okay, we have our final award, Al.
I'm trying to come up with a name for this award. Whatever it is, I'm going to give it to Joe Harris. Simply put, the reason for this, I'll come up. I promise you. I'll come up with a name for the award. But I'm just going to talk about it, dude. Joe Harris just got 4 years, $75 whole million, dude. If there's one thing that speaks volume to, that means that shooting matters, man. That's insane. I mean, he's on your team for spot up shooting. One of the best at that. I mean, he shoots over 40% every single year.
I just can't believe that they had enough money to pay him when they have dudes like KD
Dude,
and
like they took themselves out of the Harden running, which that they never really were in to begin with.
yeah. Also, as a side note, I thought it was very interesting that the Rockets said, "We'll roll with these guys into camp. I don't give.
Yeah.
I don't care." And GMs always say that. They do.
Dude,
but
and they brought in Christian Wood, and I just saw that they brought in DeMarcus Cousins, so they'll have a revamped team. I don't know if it's going to work, but they're going to be doing something different this year. They got some new guys. So I'm going to give this Joe Harris award. I'm going to give it the might not age well award. I'm not even going to sit here and say that it's a horrible, horrible deal, but they're going to be competing for a title, obviously, or at least they hope they are. They're going to have Kevin Durant if he comes back healthy. I mean, he's a top 3 player in the game.
You're right. That is a heavy contract.
And they have Kyrie Irving, top 5 point guard, I'd say, at this point. 2 of them, if they gel well together, I mean, that's going to be impossible to guard. So you're just going to have a shooter out there. Everything breaks down. You just kick it out to him, and he'll can the corner 3. He'll do whatever. He'll hit the moving shots. He'll do whatever you want to do. So I mean, just the ultimate role player. You can't really argue that. He'll be playing some 3, some 4. But I just don't know if this is really going to age well. Just because at the end of this deal, the Irving and Durant deals are going to be expired by then anyway. They could re-sign. I have no idea what the NBA is going to look like 4 years from now. But that's almost $20 million for a player. He's going to be 33 years old in his last season. So I'm just almost going to look at that. Like, imagine giving 33-year-old Kyle Korver almost $20 million. Or 33-year-old... I guess JJ Redick got 33. He usually just signs the 1-year deals for builds. Not even a secondary playmaker, but you're just paying for shooting. So you also gave DeAndre Jordan a 4-year, $40 million deal, which kind of seemed unnecessary. I know you're able to dip into the cap to sign Joe Harris. I don't think it's going to age like a fine wine. I think it's going to age like cheese that got left out on the counter. We're not refrigerating that, nothing. We left it out on the counter for a week, and then all of a sudden it's got mold growing on it. That's going to be Joe Harris in 4 years.
All right, what do you give the moldy cheese signing?
The moldy cheese Joe Harris signing. So if it was a 2-year deal, if it was like 2 years, $40 million, I'd be like, all right, I get it. That's good. But 4 years, $75 million is a little bit much. So that's what knocks it down from maybe a potential 7 to a 6.
I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 5. They could have spent that money elsewhere. They could have found better players to complement Katie and Kyrie, and you just kind of spent a lot of money on a player that's average to slightly above average. Sure, he's good, but there are other players that you can get for cheaper than that.
Really, at that, just because we mentioned his name, Kyle Korver's a free agent. I know he's a little older, but is he 36 now? So Joe Harris is, I guess, in his prime. So I'm not going to say that.
I'd take Kyle Korver. If we were to pick up a Kyle Korver, if we were to pick up a Reggie Jackson, a Hassan Whiteside,
I think Whiteside would be great for you guys. I don't know about Reggie Jackson.
Isaiah Thomas is a unrestricted free agent. If we were to pick up those guys, CJ Miles, bring Gerald Green back, we would be pretty damn good.
Yeah. I agree. I definitely agree with that. Just to wrap up the Joe Harris thing, I don't want to sound like I said that Kyle Korver is a better player than Joe Harris, but if you're going to get Kyle Korver for the veteran minimum or Joe Harris for almost $20 million a year, you might think maybe we could try to sign and trade Joe Harris to another team for lesser money. Obviously they were able to go over and dip into the cap, so it's better than losing him for nothing. You get to bring him back for 4 years. But I think that maybe if you try to sign and trade him, and then by doing that, you're able to open up more money for other players to bring in and then go sign. Again, not the biggest Wayne Ellington fan. We'll just go with CJ Miles. CJ Miles probably isn't going to be making the bag, and he could give you some 3 and D. Yeah, I think a guy like CJ Miles, now we'll just talk about Boston quickly. I think guys like CJ Miles, Kyle Korver, those would be great guys to bring in a veteran minimum or mid-level, just to augment your big 3, let's call it. I would love the Whiteside move for you guys.
All right, here we're going to do a lightning style round where you're just going to name off a player. I'll choose one, Al will choose one. A sentence or two about them, rating, boom, next player. All right, so I'll start it off. 3, 2, 1. Langston Galloway from the Pistons to the Suns. What do you say?
Actually, this is breaking news to me. How many years and how much did they sign him for?
Doesn't matter. It's lightning style.
Shit. I'm going to give that like an 8. I liked Langston Galloway a lot when he was on the Knicks. Great shooter. They're trying to push for the playoffs. He'll be a good scoring and shooting guy off the bench.
Yeah, I agree. That's a 2 guard. That's a pretty good backup. Yeah, so he's a second or third string. I don't really know who they have behind Booker, but pretty good scoring off the bench. I'm pretty sure he's a good defender, so I'll go ahead and give that a 6. Doesn't really move the needle too much, but it's pretty good.
My guy, I'm going to say Christian Wood. He signed 3 year, $41 million to the Rockets. How do you grade that?
That's a pretty big deal. I never really thought Christian Wood was like a fantastic player, but now everybody's telling me that he is. So I respect that they're building up their center depth. So I'm going to go ahead and give that one an 8.
I'm going to give that one an 8 as well. I think he was one of the he was going to be an underrated guy coming into free agency, and then the secret got out. He could stretch the floor, and another guy who's gotten better every single year in the Rockets. Kind of need guys like those, so I'm going to give that an 8.
Harry Giles III was on the Kings. Now he signed a 1-year deal with Portland.
I like Harry Giles a lot. Good passing big man. I'm going to give that like a 6.5 just because I kind of feel like they got a log jam there. Whiteside's probably leaving, so I'll give it a 7. But I like Giles a lot, and I think he has some upside, and those are the kind of guys that Portland needs to bring in.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 4.5. I think there were different players that Portland could have brought in, and I'm kind of getting sick of Portland just being really mediocre with one of the best point guards in the league, so I'm kind of sick of it. There were different players, better players that they could have brought in, and they chose to bring in Harry Giles, so I'm going to give that 4.5.
All right, I'm going to drop mine to a 6.5, just kind of. I agree. They brought some other pieces in as well, but I think just because of the logjam, and I don't know how they might have had to give him a little bit of money just because he's a decent young up-and-coming player. It definitely has a potential to pay off. All right, so for my next one, I'm going to give you Davis Bertans. He re-upped with the Wizards 5 years, $80 million.
Okay, that's a lot of money. A stretch 4. Honestly, the Wizards are kind of in shambles. The report that John Wall wanted out was feuded by their GM, so I don't really know what the deal is.
Every day there's another John Wall's pissed about this, John Wall's pissed about that.
I think they just got to give it up, and giving a lot of money to keep some of their mediocre players isn't the move. I'm going to give this one a 3. I really dislike this.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 5. Bertans, the player, is awesome. I've liked him since his time in the Spurs. He really had a breakout season this year. I kind of like the Joe Harris deal. Joe Harris got paid because he can stretch the floor. Davis Bertans just got paid because he can stretch the floor. But the difference is they're not competing for a title right now, and they just drafted Denny Avdia, who eventually is probably going to be playing either the 3 or the 4. And if he gets a shot, he will hopefully be in a similar role. Not sure why they gave him the bag. I would have tried to do a sign and trade.
All right, finally, we have Rajon Rondo, starting point guard for the Lakers, sign a new deal with the Hawks, Atlanta Hawks. What do you say?
Yeah, I like this deal a lot because they did get Teague at the deadline, so it helped a little bit. But they really only had one ball handler in Trae Young, and they need somebody else to take some of that pressure off of him and also be able to be a good defensive presence. Rondo brings both of those to the table, so it's a money signing. I'm going to give that an 8.
Yeah, I think Rondo knows how to win. He can show Trae Young a few things, and I think Rondo really knows how to play, not only off ball, but kind of off the star role. You know, he's really somebody that could always support winning. So I think that was a great signing for them. I'm honestly going to give that an 8.5.
Nice. All right, so I guess last but not least, we're going to talk about Jeremy Grant, 3-year, $60 million to go to the Pistons.
Wow. That's a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
did
money.
not want to leave this episode without that.
Well, I had just spoke so highly of the Pistons for kind of figuring out their role, and then they give Jeremy Grant a ton of money. He's 26. I mean, you're going to be taking him until he's almost 30 with a. I mean, that's just so much money. I can't even believe that. Danilo Gallinari signed for $1.5 million more than that. And Danilo Gallinari is like an established player. I don't know. That is wild. I just complimented them for going young, kind of getting over it, and then they're basically saying Jeremy Grant is our star player. I give that a 3.5.
Wow. I thought you were going to go even lower. I'm going to give it a 3.
Wow.
Basically for the same reasons. If a contender gave Jeremy Grant 3 years, $60 million, I would have been like, all right, that's an overpay. But the Pistons are giving them 3 years, $60 million. So you have Sekou, who you drafted the first round last year. I mean, limited playing time as a rookie, showed a little bit of promise. Like, you're going to want to be playing guys like him, guys like Sadiq Bey. I mean, sure, you need some veterans to fill out the roster, but they've just brought in their fair share of power forwards. So I'm going to give it a 3 just because I thought they were going to go full youth movement, and now it looks like they're trying to get into that play-in tournament with the 10 seed, and it's just not a good allocation of money. I feel like I'm giving just the whole Pistons free agency a 3. I mean, Grant took this deal so that he can get a bigger role offensively, so good for him. I mean, he's really jumped from a borderline role player to a bona fide role player who could start. Good for his agent because he's
the runner-up for
the runner-up.
The runner-up for the best agent award.
That's just about going to wrap up the episode. Before we do, the winner for the highest graded free agency signing is
Drum roll.
Serge Ibaka.
Wow.
On average, we gave that an 8.75. I think I was a 9. You were an 8.5. I think it's an amazing fit. It's a great deal for money. It's a great bargain. I mean, he's a veteran too, so it's not like you're bringing in some young guy that you don't know what you're going to get out of him. He's got championship pedigree. He's been in the playoffs almost every year of his career. And after losing Montrezl Harrell to the crosstown Lakers, you got another guy who could almost be as good, if not as good.
I think it's well-deserved of the number 1 signing.
Awesome.
Well, hey everybody, thanks for listening. Rock and Jouv signing out. Stay tuned, please, because as we tackled this gigantic sea of free agency, there's still a lot more to talk about. Still a lot of stuff in the NBA to be talking about, so appreciate you guys sticking around and listening.
Have a good one.
Rock and Jouv. Rock and Jouv. Rock and Jouv. Rock and Jouv. Rock and Jouv.